when we talked about what is the vision and national service, I think it does not begin or should not begin at the high school level. I think it needs to go to the primary school level.
Leveraging and launching our creative industries in the country.
That's gotten mixed reviews.
Well, I think what got mixed reviews is not the concept, but the labeling.
What we do today will affect those coming after us.
Good evening, Bahamas. You're tuned in to NB12, the Weekend Edition. A family left mourning after an altercation between two relatives turned deadly. Nearly a dozen Haitian migrants apprehended after their sloop sailed into South Beach. A strategic airlift alliance takes action following increased airline fees, illegal drug trends in New Providence schools, and just how much money government plans to spend on repairing the nation's schools this summer. That and so much more coming up. I'm Christina McNeil, and NB12 Weekend starts right now. Joining us. One man is in custody tonight and his relative is dead after an altercation off St. Vincent Road. The family of the man was grief-stricken at the scene this morning. Royston Jones reports.
Police say a 30-year-old man was stabbed to death at his home in Shoreen Avenue, Fairview Heights today around 10:30 a.m. Police confirmed that they took a relative of the victim in for questioning after the crime, which shocked relatives and residents of the area. Another relative arrived at the house and discovered the victim, who police have identified as Dinero Roll. Though police could not say what exactly led to the brutal stabbing, Superintendent Paul Roll, head of the Central Detective Unit, says based on preliminary reports, Roll and another man got into an altercation.
Preliminary investigation reveals that the male, who's age 30, was involved in an argument with his brother, who is age 39. Both live at this residence just behind me when they got into an argument this morning, and which resulted in one of them allegedly stabbing the other. EMS responded to the scene where they had pronounced the younger brother deceased. The elder was taken into custody, and we'll be continuing investigations with him later on today.
It is unclear whether Roll's relative sustained any injuries. As NB12 arrived on the scene, scores of residents and other onlookers were gathered in the street. Many of them, though unwilling to go on camera, said nothing like this has happened in the typically quiet neighborhood. A woman who police confirmed to be Roll's mother burst into tears as she stood in front of the house. She had to be escorted from the scene by police and was placed in an ambulance. As far as a motive, Superintendent Roll says police are still working on that.
She's obviously traumatized, and some of her family went with her to support her at the hospital. We know it was an argument. It's still early in the game, so we're still speaking with the persons who were present.
Relatives gathered outside the house hugged each other and wept. Some fell to the ground and screamed. Inspector Valentino R. Marley of the Bahamas Humane Society, a distant relative of the victim, stood among relatives. He told our news team the family was far too emotional to speak, but confirmed Roll was a husband and father of one. He also said the family plans to hold a family meeting sometime today. Roll says this incident off St. Vincent Road has pushed the country's murder count up to 64 for the year so far. This time last year, there were more than 75 murders recorded in the country. Reporting for NB12, I'm Royston Jones.
Well, 10 men and 1 woman believed to be Haitian migrants apprehended near South Beach this morning. Part of a group of Migrants Defense Force officers say may have been on board a wooden sloop in waters off southern New Providence. Royal Bahamas Defense Force Lieutenant Origen Delaveau tells our news team officers received a call that a sloop was spotted off the coast around 4 a.m. He says 11 migrants were captured during the first round of the search and recovery effort, but officers could be searching for as many as 200 migrants who may have been on that vessel. He says that's where cooperation from members of the public comes in.
It's uncertain right now. That size vessels can bring anywhere from 100 to 200. But we're going to do our best to continue to search. We have well-trained men in those areas. They know exactly how to find persons who do not want to be found. And so we are confident that once they would have been conducted through with this search and recovery exercise, and it's still going on even now as we speak, hopefully if we can find anyone else who might have slipped our hands earlier. Encourage our general populace and the Bahamians to continue to support immigration and the defense and police force in these efforts. It is good citizens like that, who continue to assist us in protecting our borders and protecting our sovereignty.
Delaveau says officers are also trying to determine exactly where the sloop came from. He says strong winds generated by the recently downgraded tropical system may have prompted migrants to set sail.
Well, I would say if they did come from deep south, with the kind of winds that come from that area, that would probably be a best time for anyone to make a trip because they have some sort of wind that could speed up their passage. It's a possibility. We can't rule out anything, but...
While Foreign Affairs Minister Fred Mitchell recently spent a week in Singapore for a high-level meeting of CARICOM foreign ministers to see how best regional member countries can benefit from a partnership with the Singapore government. Mitchell says the Bahamas agreed to support Singapore's election to some international councils in exchange for technical, financial, and educational support. This gives the Bahamas the opportunity to benefit from members of a rising middle class in China who are looking to protect their assets in Singapore.
There is a Bahamian, Paul Moss. You may know him. He's a civic activist. He's also an attorney, but he is in the financial services sector, and he has an office in Singapore. And so I took the opportunity to go visit the office to talk to his partners about the possibilities of how the Bahamas and the financial services sector can expand its presence in Singapore, which is a center of wealth, and a lot of wealth exchange takes place there. In particular, we found out during the course of our exchanges with the Singaporean government that they have agreed with the Chinese government the Chinese government is going to allow for the trading of the currency, the Chinese currency, in Singapore.
Also, with at least 10 Bahamians living and working in Singapore as doctors and marine specialists, Mitchell says the government is scouting an honorary council to represent Bahamian interests in that country.
We think that there's a lot of potential there, and we need an official presence in Singapore. And so someone has put their name forward, and we're having that go through the channels to do the security checks and so on and so forth. So that was that visit.
Mitchell says he will await an official announcement from the government before revealing who was chosen to fill that post. And partners in strategic airlift are taking concerns over new airline taxes seriously. Effective July 1st, the Bahamas introduced a new customs processing fee of $75 per arrival and $75 per departure for each commercial flight, and $50 for each private aircraft, along with an increased customs service charge. Nassau Airport Development Company CEO Vernice Joaquin says NAD, along with the Ministry of Tourism and Nassau Paradise Island Promotion Board, are seeking to address the concerns voiced by private aircraft operators.
The complaints that have been put forward by our airlines with respect to the new charges and fees are, troubling. There's an effort underway to try to address that with the government. So I really don't want to speak specifically about that because I was not a part of those actual discussions. I don't want to prejudice anything that they might be actually engaged in terms of trying to mitigate the impact of those fees, but suffice it to say that it's being addressed.
There are approximately 40,000 private flights a year from the U.S. to the Bahamas that can add anywhere from $160 million to $200 million in annual revenue. An aviation industry insider recently warned that the Bahamas stands to lose close to tens of millions of dollars in revenue if the government does not revisit the latest taxes being imposed on that sector. LPIA facilitates 32 airlines that service 29 international and 16 domestic destinations. Coming up, pastors prepare to take action against drug use among students.
As young as primary age school kids are using that particular substance.
And a little later, how the National Training Agency is working to improve the country's workforce. Stay tuned.